Honorable participants, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, representatives of the media, welcome to the press conference on peace, relief, and recovery. I'm your moderator for this particular conference, Eldar Rasulov. During the conference, if there's any questions or an issue, please don't hesitate to approach me. I'll try to delegate your request to a corresponding organizer or volunteer. Briefly about the essence of this conference. Today, the COP29 presidency launched the Baku call on climate action for peace, relief, and recovery, a milestone initiative aimed at addressing the urgent nexus of climate change, conflict, and humanitarian needs. This initiative responds to the growing recognition that the adverse effects of climate change, such as water scarcity, food insecurity, land degradation, and human displacement, can act as catalysts for conflict and instability, especially in the most climate vulnerable regions. Ambassador Elshad Iskandarov is the lead for this conference, who led two high-level meetings launching the Baku call for climate, peace, relief, and recovery. I recall him talking to local media today already, pretty sure he has lots more to offer. We will be hearing from him, accompanied by the Ambassador Ahmed Abdel Latif, Director General of the Cairo International Center for Conflict Resolution, Peacekeeping and Peacebuilding, Professor Francesco Corvaro, Special Envoy for Climate Change of the Italian government, and Christina Wegelein, Head of Climate Security Division, German Federal Foreign Office. Dear speakers, the floor will be soon yours. Then we will have a Q&A session. Let's try to keep the questions and the speeches as laconic as possible. Thank you. Good luck. Ambassador Iskandarov, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I greet all the media. We will be speaking, I think. Can you hear me now? Yeah. It's just middle of the day and the voice is already down, but okay. We wish us all good luck. Just one correction. These initiatives which we discussed today, they were forwarded by Azerbaijan in a unique manner. They are not fully presidency action agenda initiatives, but a creative modality of the co-lead initiative. Therefore, here at the press conference also, I'm not a lead, I'm a co-lead together with dear colleagues. So the initiative which we developed since the beginning of acquiring the role of the presidency designated for the COP29, which is called COP29 Climate and Peace Initiative, envisaged two important objectives. Number one, to highlight the important nexus between climate and peace, together with reiterating pledges and providing recommendations. And the second, more important maybe, to provide tool for operationalization, for delivery, for implementation, and for synergies and added value to be brought into the concrete actions in this area. Therefore, the strategic vision of this group, the colleagues group, and four of us today here, but we also have other important members of this colleague group. Let me start presenting right to left from my side. Italy, Germany, Egypt, also have United Kingdom, United Arab Emirates, and Uganda. The strategic vision of this group was not to create another declaration, another statement of intention, but rather to bring existing initiatives under one roof, on the one platform. So that's what informed our strategy, and today we have two deliverables which prove that this strategy was successful and was on the right path. Number one is the Baku call on climate action for peace, relief, and recovery. This call reiterates on from one angle all the previous pledges, but it also put a specific recommendations, solution-oriented recommendations on challenges like food insecurity, water scarcity, land degradation, and recommendations for land rehabilitation, as well as climate-induced human mobility or migration. It also It also proposes in its core text the second objective. It also contributes to the second objective, which is delivery, by establishing a Baku hub on peace and climate action. So this hub, as I mentioned, to bring together existing initiatives, is a cooperative platform which will bring together important initiatives developed within the UNFCCC framework or within the UNFCCC conferences. This is COP27 initiative of CRISP, crisis responses, climate responses for sustaining peace, and CRRP declaration, climate relief, recovery, peace declaration of COP28. But also important initiative developed by leading countries in this field outside UNFCCC, a German initiative which now is growing into some 30 member states, I think a platform, Climate for Peace, and also climate dimension of important developmental project of the century, I would say, Matteo Plan for Africa. So those 4 initiatives under one roof of this Baku hub will be interacting, exchanging information with each other, but also forging joint actions. For delivering of these joint actions, we also had another 2 layers of the Baku hub. One of them is to deliver through knowledge, through development of proposals, through assistance on the informed policy base, and for this we brought together think tanks representing those countries. They will be meeting shortly after our press conference to establish a working group of the leading think tanks. And yet another track of this architecture would be cooperation with the UN agencies. We were very delighted to announce today that those partnership agreements have been already signed with UNDP, with International Organization for Migration, with Green Climate Fund, and with important international agency in the area of disaster management relief, which is the IFRC, International Federation of Red Cross and Crescent. So with this architecture, the intention of the group of colleagues is to move ahead and to develop it further to cover other initiatives also, to establish the synergies. We are very thankful to our colleagues who endorsed this Baku call for entrusting COP29 to host the Secretariat for Baku Hub, but also we are looking forward for new partners under this initiative to bring with their projects, which would be very much happy to include into the flow of our work and focus. And the doors for Baku Hub are open. I will briefly maybe provide also information that besides the group of colleagues we already have after our first 2 sessions rise in the number of endorsing countries of the Baku call up to 30 now. But let's wait a little bit. We still have a couple more sessions today. So exact list of the countries which endorse the Baku call would be announced later today at the reception at 6:30, which will conclude our work during the Peace Relief and Recovery Day. Thank you very much, and with this
Thank you very much, Ambassador Iskandarov. That was truly comprehensive, but yet laconic. I suggest we proceed with Ambassador Ahmed Abdel Latif. Let me remind you, he's the Director General of the Cairo International Center for Conflict Resolution, Peacekeeping and Peace Building. Mr. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Iskandarov, and let me start by congratulating you and the COP29 presidency on the success of this morning high-level panel which launched the Baku call and the Baku hub that Egypt fully supports. And in reality, I think you have already provided an overview of how we got to the Baku call and the Baku hub. And I think this is important to highlight. We have a proverb that says the journey is as important as the destination. It's how you get there. And the COP29 presidency on this issue has been innovative and bold by just not deciding on its own what it thought how to tackle this issue, but to bring a group of countries together that have worked on this issue In our case, during our COP27 presidency in Sharm el-Sheikh, it was the first time that the COP presidency came forward with an initiative on climate and peace, highlighting this issue in the COP process, the Climate Responses for Sustaining Peace initiative. And we have been committed to moving forward that initiative, and I head the Center of Excellence in Egypt, Cairo Center for International Conflict Resolution, Peacekeeping and Peacebuilding, which is the implementing arm of this initiative. So we've had also an interesting experience on that. Other countries also bring their experience. So in reality, Ambassador, you have set a precedent of how to foster collaboration, cooperation in tackling an issue. And I think it would be very difficult to go back to just, each country deciding just deciding without this consultative process how to tackle it. So this, I wanted to highlight this first point. The COP29 presidency has really led an inclusive process of deliberation and consultation, not only with this group of co-leads countries of this climate and peace initiative, but with also many other stakeholders from international and regional organizations, civil society, the private sector. So we are really delighted to be part of that very inclusive process. Then the second on the substance and on the result achieved. In the current international environment where we are, that is characterized by a lot of divisions and conflicts and tensions, I think it is very important to reaffirm what we have previously agreed. We cannot take it for granted. We cannot take for granted that because last year there was a declaration, an important declaration on COP28, and it was a milestone on climate and peace, that a year later there is also the same commitment to it. So I think by reaffirming this commitment and the shared commitments and also previous initiatives, including ours, you have also brought forward a signal, a positive signal, that there is a willingness, continued willingness of countries to support and collaborate on this important agenda. And it's not, again, something that in the current international environment we should take for granted. More importantly then, on a practical level, and this is also something that we have very much appreciated in the COP29 presidency, it's a very practical approach to how to tackle this. And as Ambassador Skandarov said, the COP29 president did not decide to do another initiative in this area, but rather establish a platform through the Baku Call and the Baku Hub in particular that brings together the existing initiatives and that makes them further work together, build synergies, see how they can scale up efforts. And again, this had not been done before you, Ambassador, and this is in itself also a great achievement. Because of course, each one of these initiatives, they come from different perspectives. They have different emphasis. They have different priorities, right? Within the same broad topic of climate action for peace. For example, for us, a very important priority for us is to ensure country leadership, country ownership of this agenda, that the countries affected by this issue are in the driving seat of taking forward measures, policies, to address the impacts of climate change on conflicts. And you have done this, and you have ensured this through, I will finish on this, particularly in the design of the Baku Hub. It has a steering committee where the countries are represented to make sure that their needs and their priorities are what guides action in this area. And again, this is not to take something for granted, because you have out there initiatives, actors, etc., who are also working on this issue, but we don't know necessarily who they are, where they come from, and what is guiding their work, right? Including when they mobilize resources, right, in the name of this issue. But through this platform, we know that the initiatives and the actions that will go through it are in line with country ownership and priorities. And just to add on a final note, that already on our part, we have this morning with UNDP and with the presence of Ambassador Skandarov, launched a network for capacity building on climate peace and security. Because again, this is the building of capacities in this area. It's a new issue for many countries still. There is limited understanding about it. So this network is a first concrete step example of a mechanism that comes under the Baku Hub and that contributes to the objective of the Baku Hub to scale up efforts to scale up the work in this area, bringing many organizations together, not just each one working in its own corner alone. So in conclusion, just to thank you, Ambassador Skandarov, for the COP29 work on this area, and thank you personally for your commitment. Without you, this would not have happened. And also to thank the colleagues that are with me also here. Italy, it has been a very fruitful also engagement to work together under the COP29 presidency. Thank you.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much. You underlined the word commitment several times. We really hope this commitment and initiate a response to the growing recognition that the adverse effects of climate change could cause. Our next speaker, distinguished speaker, is Ms. Christina Wegelein, Head of Climate Security Division, German Federal Foreign Office. Ms. Wegelein, the floor is yours.
Thank you, moderator. And thank you very much to the presidency, and especially to Ambassador Iskandarov. It's really been a process a way that we took together. You know, we're always speaking about walking the talk, and I think this is what we did really during the last month, even with all the other challenges that we had to confront globally, and also, of course, looking at the climate crisis. We, of course, welcome the call and the hub. We think that it has been said that so many actors have been involved in trying to address the climate and security, climate peace and security nexus for a very long time, and still not enough is happening. So we know that in the negotiations, for example, of course, here in Baku, finance is a key issue. Also, mitigation is a key issue. But we also see that while many negotiators and all the countries are engaged in this, the most vulnerable and those who are fragile, and often it's the same context that suffer most from the climate crisis and from conflicts, they don't receive enough. So this is basically why we think we have to do more than has been done already. I have mentioned that these efforts, you know, that have been undertaken during the last COPs, it has been mentioned, but also on the broader UN context, within the UN Climate Security Council, for example, within the G7, we have expanded climate diplomacy efforts on this. We've been working together as Germany, but also with other countries, with the Women, Peace and Humanitarian Fund in order to increase their climate action. We have also supported humanitarian action to be more climate positive. The UNHCR has a climate pledge, so we are really looking for these initiatives to go together to address both climate challenges, the climate crisis, and also conflicts and instability on the ground. So as I said, these crises that we are facing, we know now, we have the analysis that they are exacerbating each other. So that is why we think also the solutions, they have to be more integrated. We cannot address the climate crisis alone or instability alone. So in all these endeavors, with everything we have done so far, with all the initiatives found, we had the feeling that it would be good to, you know, join our forces and address this together. And this is really the next step that the Baku call is going. And I have mentioned this, you know, when we say that climate finance is so essential in this COP, then we of course all know it's about the numbers. So there needs to be more funds for these countries affected, but we also know the funds have to reach these countries, and that's not always ensured. So if it is millions or trillions or billions, you know, we have to make sure there's access to these funds. And this is also a key focus of the call and the hub in the implementation. So we really want the funds that are spent to be reaching the most vulnerable and those who are conflict affected. And there, climate action can't work alone. We need the peace-building community, we need the humanitarian actors who are on the ground to support us, and we think we can be more effective and more efficient if we work together. And also, a second major topic for this COP is, of course, mitigation. And I think this goes well and is in line with what we are planning with the hub and the call also. It's been said this morning that with renewable energies that are, of course, a major contribution to mitigation, we have, I think it was said, energy from heaven or a solution from heaven, which can actually help to make peace, but they don't only help, I think they're a necessary precondition to make peace, because if the emissions increase and if the temperatures increase to rise, then we will have a problem even working together, all the peace builders, humanitarian actors and climate activists. So both these very important aspects of the COP have to go hand in hand, and with the Baku call and the Baku hub, we are trying to help reach this ambition. Thank you very much.
Ms. Wegelin, please accept our gratitude for your time and attention. Our last speaker for the press conference on peace, relief and recovery will be Professor Francesco Corvaro, Special Envoy for Climate Change of the Italian government. Mr. Corvaro, the floor is yours, and thanks to your colleagues, you will have as much time as you need to speak. So good luck, then we'll proceed with the Q&A.
So thanks, moderator, and first of all, I would like to thank the presidencies of COP29 and moreover my big friend Ambassador Iskandarov to propose us this initiative. When I met him the first time in person in Shamaki at the end of July, immediately I had the feeling that this initiative could be really important and positive for one reason at the beginning. Because COP presidencies decided to open this initiative to a co-leader group, and it is impossible to propose peace alone. And this is, for me, a very interesting starting point. For this reason, I decided to push a lot with my minister Tajani to have Italy involved in this kind of discussion. And you know, I traveled a lot in this 1 year and a half of my position as a special envoy, and I had the possibility to touch with my hand the effects of climate change: water scarcity, food scarcity, land degradation, and as a consequence, obviously, migration. But believe me that speaking with that people, they don't want to leave their country. So it is our duty to help them to maintain the position that they have in their countries, but to do this, we need to help them against the climate effect, to have the possibility to have food for the animals, water, and the land to produce food. For this reason, Italy decided to support this initiative, and as you know, the Mattei Plan is partially dedicated to this, with the pillars that you can find inside: energy, education, healthcare. So we are working in this direction at the international level to give them really the possibility for a future that can be sustainable from an environmental point of view, but also for them for an economic and social point of view. Italy, it is in the DNA of Italy to have peace, to speak about peace. It is one of the pillars of our constitutions. Italy is always open to dialogue, to create dialogue among this topic. And why not also for the connection with climate change? Because climate change is affected a lot of people, but the most vulnerable are women, children in particular. And it's time to act. It's really time to act. We don't have enough time. We can do something, and I believe that this platform can be very useful in this direction, to engage other countries to think about this, because climate and peace, climate and security is an issue for everyone. Nobody is without this problem, at least not now, in the future for sure, because migration could be really a big issue in the future world if we are not able to fight and to propose a solution for the adaptation and moreover for the mitigation. So I want to really thank the COP presidencies to open this dialogue and to improve this dialogue and to ask the support of the Italian government. Italy is always ready to speak about peace around the world. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Carvara. And on this note, I would love to accept our gratitude for all the speakers of this press conference. I would call for a round of applause for dear speakers on conference today. Before we proceed to the Q&A session, fellow representative of the media, I would kindly ask you to keep a question at a time so that we'll have enough time for each of you to give your question. Yes, please.
Thank you. Caroline O'Doherty from the Irish Independent. We're speaking here about the impact of climate change on conflict. Can we also speak about the impact of conflict on climate change? So, for example, should military emissions, the reporting of those emissions be made mandatory, not just in the context of the fuels and energy used, but in the loss of embodied carbon in the built environments that are destroyed and in the loss of natural carbon sinks through damage to natural landscapes?
Was the question to a specific speaker or just general?
I'm happy for anyone.
Yeah, anyone from the panel that wants to answer that, please proceed.
Thank you very much for your question. It is maybe not a specific part of this call or hub, but I can say that it does play an important role. These emissions are relevant, and that, for example, in the EU, but also within NATO, we have started processes under the headline of greening the military or greening the forces. So there's mandatory strategies in all the member state countries now in order to prepare for how to go down this path. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next question, lady in the second row. Thanks in advance for keeping your questions laconic.
Just to add.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just to add on this question. Yes, but overall, I think we have to keep the picture that of the overall emissions. It's a very small part, but we need to end conflicts. That is the priority. You know, we need to end the use of force between countries to settle disputes, and this is what we need to focus on our energies, and this is the call is a signal important in this direction.
Anyone from the panel wants to add to the last question, or we can proceed with the next one? Yes, please.
Hi, Mariel Lozada from Climate Home News. I have a question for Ambassador Iskandarov. One of the COP29 presidency proposals was a peace truce that at one point you guys mentioned had 127 supports, and you mentioned that the full list will be shared today on Peace Day. What can we expect about that?
Yes, indeed. We have presidency action agenda item, the COP truce, which is modeled after the Olympic truce to announce truce basically on the military activities during the COP with two purposes. Number one, most important, as Ambassador mentioned, to foster the peace, to put our solidarity behind the peace efforts in the world, but number two, also to highlight the importance of climate, since we are talking that the climate crisis is looming, to underline that it's important so that we can put arms aside and concentrate on climate. And it's indeed is supported by 131 countries. The truce is open. The call which we are talking today, it's another part of the climate and peace nexus. It's more on support for the vulnerable countries which are climate-induced and affected by the conflict. So that's overall one topic of the climate and peace, but different tracks and different initiatives, and this one is a COLID initiatives. The second one, which we are talking about, Baku call, announced publicly today, and we already have up to 30. So those 30 countries will be announced later today. The countries which are signed or which endorse the Baku truce, it's online. You can find it already. You know, endorsed 131 exact number today. Thank you.
Anything else from the speakers that should be added? If not, we still have a room for several more questions. Is there anyone else in the auditorium that would love to address a question regarding today's press conference? If not, then thank you very much, dear speakers, the fellow representatives of media. I hope that the rest of your day, rest of your conference, all of your endeavors is successful, and we'll see you around. See you later. Thank you.
Bunu da çıkarttım da haberim yok.